everybody. Welcome back. It's another episode of Monday Morning Mojo with me, Anna Gibbs. I'm so glad you're here. I am excited to jump right into today's conversation. And I'm going to take you back to February. I recorded an episode about the year of the fire horse. It was actually episode 126. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes in case you didn't hear it or you want a little reminder. And at the time, I had been reading about and hearing about the fact that this new year was coming in according to the Chinese zodiac and what that particular year was said to represent. And the year of the fire horse brings themes like bold action, transformation, courage, reinvention, independence, leadership, and accelerated growth. That's what kept showing up repeatedly. And I mean, who wouldn't get excited about that? And so I knew that whether you believe in astrology or not, the Chinese zodiac or any of those things, that what was really important about the conversation, and it was important then, still important right now, is that it gives us a lens through which we can think about the year ahead. A reminder that maybe this wasn't the year to play small. Maybe it is the year to finally to move forward, to take action. And I remember recording that episode with a mixture of excitement and a lot of curiosity. I wondered if this year would feel any different. And I wondered if, all the talk about momentum and opportunity would actually become part of my own experience, right? Whenever we put ourselves out there and we are teaching and sharing our thoughts, there's always that little voice speaking to us saying, could this really be true? And I will tell you that I certainly believed every aspect of it, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. And if nothing else, it would raise your curiosity and get you thinking about this interesting concept. So we are now 6 months into that new year, and I have to tell you that for me personally, this year has been unlike anything I expected or could have predicted. And I was preparing for today's episode, realizing that this is more than just a 6-month update. Even though I'm going to share some things that have transpired and some things that have changed, and some of which I think the wheels were in motion before, other things were delightful surprises. What I really think this conversation is about is really evidence. I think it's evidence of what can happen when you begin making decisions that are aligned with the person you're becoming. And that's why I'm sharing this. Not to tell you, necessarily all the things I've accomplished, but really to show you what's possible. Because what's going on in my life is exciting for me. It's about my goals, achievements, my vision for my life. And that's fine. But it's really about you and your life now. When you listen to this, I want you to think about what is next for you. That's why I'm sharing this, right? It's more than just sharing my checklist of things. I think if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've watched some of this unfold in real time. So when I start to share or give you my update, it's not going to be too surprising. And yet I do want you to also take the time to reflect on all the growth you've experienced over the last 6 months. Because here's the truth. I haven't taken a sabbatical. I didn't disappear for 6 months and then come back with some amazing success stories. You've been on this journey with me. You've heard about some things along the way, one episode at a time. And so I hope that what you hear today really is not, again, it's not about you comparing your journey to mine. I hope it reminds you that your own next chapter is waiting for you. I want you to realize that you have the opportunity now to create whatever you can dream about in your head, so that when you look back at some point, you will see all of those tracks started laying out in front of you. And so that you can realize those visions coming to life too. So as I look back now, I will tell you that I am seeing that so much of what has happened Again, there was no luck here. This is not coincidence. We all come from different beliefs and different experiences. So sometimes when I start talking about manifestation, or in this case, we're talking about the Chinese zodiac, that this is not woo woo stuff. This is really about, I think, all of us embracing the potential we have to create change in our own life. And like I said, this didn't happen because of luck. There's no coincidence. It wasn't because, I suddenly became more talented or more capable than I was 6 months ago, even though I know we're growing each day. I think it was because I finally started saying yes to the things that I had been preparing for a long time. And that's really the message that I want to talk about today. So, again, I'm going to share some things that have happened in the last 6 months, but this is more than an update on my life. That's not why I recorded this episode for you. I do want to share what's going on, but I think it's really to give you an opportunity to look at it through a lens that says, if I can see how Anna's experience is reflecting something that is available to every one of us, then it gives you an opportunity to ask next, what are you waiting for? I think that what my goal is today is for all of you listening to understand that we have to stop waiting for the perfect time. We have to stop telling ourselves one day we will. I think it's about understanding that you have the capability, you have all of the resources and tools to harness and take advantage of something right now. And that when you act from a place of alignment, things will start to fall into place quickly, almost surprisingly, because it's all about alignment. So, if there's one thing I've learned this year, it's that alignment creates momentum. And I know I've been talking a lot about alignment. I have my book coming out, which focuses on being out of alignment and then getting back into alignment. But here's the real reason why you want to find that fit. It's because alignment creates momentum, and momentum creates opportunities that you could never have planned for. So when I recorded that episode back in February, I had only been writing my book for about a month, maybe 6 weeks. And that manuscript was nowhere near finished. And there were days I definitely questioned whether I had enough to say, whether if what I was writing about was going to be worth reading. There are days when I wondered if anyone would want to read the book, and that turned into questioning myself. And of course, I think that's normal for a new author, especially when you're writing about your own shared experiences, you're sharing your lived experiences. It's normal to sort of question yourself. But I knew all along that it was important work, and I knew all along that this book was being birthed from me. And I have to tell you that today, now 6 months later, I'm sitting only about a month away from releasing my book into the world. The book will be released on September 18th of 2026. And so not only did I write a book, something I've talked about for years, the goal I have had to write a book, but I wrote a book that was really personal, but I wrote a book that I believe moves away from just my personal story into helping other women see themselves in the pages of the book. And then I took it a step further, because I realized when I got to the end of writing the book that I think most people who are reading the book are going to want more, and they're going to want an opportunity now to continue the conversation and really do the work. And so I went on to create a companion workbook designed to help the reader actually apply what they may have connected with in the book and learn some things about themselves. And I am so proud of that, because I think it's one thing to understand an idea intellectually. It's another thing entirely to do the work of examining your own life, identifying where you may have drifted away from yourself, being honest about that, and then intentionally doing the work to close the gap. And so I put together this workbook so that it could be a place where you and other readers could practice how to return. I did create a framework called the return method. And this workbook is full of questions and exercises that will allow you to examine your own values, your boundaries, rebuild self-trust, look at the patterns you might be working from and have been working from for a long time. And more importantly, for you to begin to reconnect with the version of yourself that maybe you may have been missing for a while. And so I share all of that because this turned into such a bigger passion project than I could have envisioned. And it all just started flowing so beautifully. And so what's interesting is that while I thought I was creating something for other people, this process was working on me and changing me too. And I thought, I had done a lot of the work. And I think one of the biggest realizations I've had over these last 6 months is that we're always working on ourselves, or should be, and we're always evolving, and that we are building our confidence along the way, and we are learning to trust ourselves along the way. And every chapter I finished, every element of the book and workbook and some other intellectual property I've been developing for you just became more evidence of how much we have in terms of potential and how much we can do even in a short period of time. And so I'm excited to say that in 6 short months, I feel good about how much I've accomplished, and that what I've accomplished is really now going to be a gift to the world because I believe that it's going to change lives. And that is really exciting for me. And so that realization really landed, and I realized I wasn't just writing a book. I was building trust, rebuilding trust in myself. And it was much more than this professional accomplishment. It was really a personal journey. And so, listen, I want to share that with you because I think that there are always things that we are building on and that we are learning and developing. And if we don't take the time to acknowledge that, it can be lost sometimes. And I think when we can connect with our accomplishments, it will give us the confidence, the courage, the inspiration to continue, and for us to be able to create an impact in the world around us. And I will say another thing that I just shared with you about some things in the book and some things in the workbook. I wrote a lot about alignment, but I also wrote a lot about boundaries. And I will tell you that in the last 6 months, I have really gotten clear about my boundaries, and I'm not apologetic about it. And I say that because, look, setting boundaries is not selfish. I think setting boundaries is really important for us to be able to live a healthy life. And I am a recovering people pleaser. So boundaries were important for me to examine. And I think that we all have to be honest about that. And it's not being harsh. It's not being aloof or for us to create distance from people. Just the opposite. I think creating boundaries really protects your energy. It protects your space so that you can do more of the work you want to do or be there for people when you need to be there. And I think that establishing our boundaries is an opportunity to really develop more of our inner self-knowing and self-trust. So we grow from that. I don't think boundaries limit us at all. So that was something I wanted to share with you too. So I think the biggest shift that occurred for me in the last 6 months, which some people may or may not really have realized this, is that I stepped away from my full-time role at Keller Williams. And I know that some people were surprised by that. Some people have asked me if that was difficult. And the honest answer is yes. It was difficult. Of course it was. It represented an incredible chapter of my life. And I'm still connected to the people there. I'm still connected to wanting to see the organization Keller Williams, specifically Keller Williams Hudson Valley Upstate Network. I want to see that continue to thrive. I want to continue to support the growth of the company and, more importantly, the agents within it. And like I said, it represented an incredible long chapter of my life. I was there for 14 years. And there were amazing relationships, incredible experiences, and lessons that shaped who I am as a leader, who I am as a person. And you can't walk away from something like that and not feel a lot of things. And here's what I learned, that we all have to be honest about when a new chapter in our life must begin. And sometimes the next chapter is ready to be written, and not because you're unhappy, but because you've grown, because you've evolved. And those are different things, you know. So for me, my decision to move forward and my decision to leave my position at KW Hudson Valley Upstate Network was really not to walk away from something, but to move towards something. It was to really embrace more of my desire to coach and to lead and to train and to speak. And certainly, I think, to make room to fully step into all of that. And also because I knew that with the book coming out, that there was going to be a lot of opportunity for me to speak and teach from the book, to teach the principles that have become the foundation of getting back to you. And so there comes a point in your life when you have to make sometimes a difficult decision about what has to change in order to make room for something new, something bigger, something that feels aligned with who you are at this moment in time. And that's what was going on for me. And that was why I made that decision. And so for me, it wasn't about frustration. It wasn't about leaving because I was unhappy. It was about moving towards something. And I will now turn the mirror a little bit to you to say, what is it that you are ready to move towards? And it may not be a new career path or a new job, but maybe it is. Maybe it's something else. But I think that we all have things in our lives that we're holding on to in terms of a passion or a goal or a vision. And we tell ourselves that we'll get to it sooner or later. We tell ourselves that maybe it's not the time. And I think in retrospect, I'd been feeling a pull for a little while and knowing that I was preparing for something new, something else. And so the timing was here and I had to make that decision. And I personally couldn't wait anymore. And so my question to you is, what are you waiting for? And what are you limiting in terms of your own potential? Because there may be something calling to you that you're not paying attention to. And if we could pay attention, how could we evolve, right? What if we could experience a bigger level of growth when we make those decisions? And I think that decisions are powerful. And sometimes one decision can lead to something that is monumental, even though at that moment you don't realize it. Sometimes the first decision just creates a little space for you to think differently, for you to examine things differently, for you to look at things. And it's amazing because without that space, you can't really think and you can't really create more vision. And so when you have that space, opportunities begin showing up. And look, there's a lot of things happening around us. There were a lot of things showing up for me disguised as opportunity. And I know from past experience, you can't chase every single one of them. But when something shows up that is really aligned with who you know you are deep down in your core, when something shows up that speaks to you based on your values and where you believe you can make a difference in the world, then that's worth paying attention to. So looking back, I don't think that all the opportunities I'm talking about suddenly appeared because this is the year of the fire horse. I want to make this clear. I think what really was happening is that I finally became available for them. So whether you believe in this Chinese zodiac or not, I think that every season of life has something to teach us if we're willing to pay attention. So for me, this season has definitely been about courage. It has been about stepping out. It has been about creating visibility, and it has been about movement. And for me, it has been about saying yes to opportunities that maybe in the past I might have convinced myself I wasn't ready for. One example, and you've heard me talk about this on the show before, I had the pleasure of attending the Go Abundance Women's Retreat in Cabo, and there's another one coming up in the fall that I think I'm going to go to. And I met incredible, remarkable women who are building businesses, leading organizations, living with incredible intention. And it's certainly not the first time I've been in a room like that. But I think that in this case, this was a different group of women and it was a different energy. And that led to lots of great conversations and other opportunities that have resulted in me becoming a part of another great organization called Leadership Global. I've had the privilege of being connected to several podcasts where I've been interviewed, and I have some, great media opportunities coming up. And really, what's been wonderful are the people. I've had the most amazing conversations in the last few months. I've spoken with people that I never would have had an opportunity to connect with in the past. And so that has led to a lot of new business opportunities. It has resulted in new coaching clients, new relationships have emerged and formed. And again, I think that through it all, I just keep coming back to the one thing. I'm thinking that none of this would have happened if I had been willing to stay exactly where I was. And that is not just in physical presence. If I had stayed where I was in terms of my mindset or in terms of my own perception or beliefs, if I had stayed physically attached to certain roles and responsibilities, then I wouldn't have been able to give myself an opportunity to spread my wings and expand. And so, again, for you, doesn't mean you have to quit your job tomorrow. That's not the lesson here. But the lesson could be is where do you need to create more room for what's next? How can you create space for what you want to call into your life? So if you've ever thought about manifestation, what is it? Everyone talks about it, right? We hear this word a lot. Social media is filled with conversations about the law of attraction, vision boards, affirmations, creating the life you want. I sound like that too most days. I get it. But here's the truth. Here's the real truth. While there is a lot of value in those conversations, what really matters is what you think every single day. That's what really matters. If you want to get to the root of manifestation, attraction, it's really about you and how you hang out with your own thoughts. Because the way that you're talking to yourself is what is really predicting your future more than any other outside voice or message or book you could read or vision board you could create or that affirmation card deck that you have on your desk. What really matters is the clarity you get from your own thinking. And if you are struggling to see that clarity, then I would say that you might need to shift how you're talking to yourself. Because I believe that what we constantly focus on, what is consistently showing up in our thoughts, begins to shape what we notice, what we pursue, and even the opportunities we're willing to say yes to. And I'll tell you again, my experience over these last 6 months has taught me some very powerful things. I'm not going to tell you manifestation is magic. I think what manifestation really is, I'm going to come back to alignment. It's alignment in action. And I have thought about being an author. I've thought about writing books for probably 20 years. But it wasn't until earlier this year when I got I can remember the day. It was a day in late December, early January, probably early January, honestly. I had been writing a lot in my journal between the holiday time, between that time when December is winding down and January starting. And it was sometime in the first week of January, there was a snowstorm. I was home here at my home office, and I could see myself holding a book. No lie. I saw myself holding a book, and it was this book. It was the book that's coming out for you soon. I realized that there was a vision around this book, and I knew that it could be a reality. And so when you create that kind of powerful connection to your own vision, the universe starts to move very quickly to start bringing you opportunity, but to bring you in alignment with what you say you want. And so when I could imagine not just writing a book and having a book, but what I really started to imagine next were all the women who were going to read the book. And when I got excited about sharing my story and how other people would relate to it, that's what got me to sit down and write that book every single day, which I did. I wrote every day for months, sometimes starting as early as 4:30 in the morning. And I had to create boundaries around my time. I had to make some choices around what I would put as my priorities. I got clearer and clearer about the work that the book could create. And it started to shape my decisions, and it started to help me understand what I needed to do to create more space and invest in myself. And I can't say I was completely ready. I wasn't, but I think what this year has taught me is that you have to sometimes say yes before you're completely ready. And that has happened many times in my life. I've often said that I believe the net will show up once I jump. And so that is not a foreign concept for me. But when you get really in alignment with your vision, it does more than just inspire you. It brings it to life. And so when you see that you can have that, you just start working to make it real. And I'll tell you, I've had people ask me a lot over the years if I believe in the law of attraction. And I do. I do believe that, again, what we consistently focus on influences what we notice and how we show up and the opportunities we recognize. And I also know that when you're clear about what matters most, your mind is going to begin filtering for possibilities that probably were there all along, but now your intention and your actions line up. And so your mind starts to filter and starts to bring to you all of those opportunities and possibilities. And so I do believe that the universe is working for us all the time. But I don't believe the universe is doing the work for us. There's a difference. See, I believe that there's this incredible energy that we can tap into and harness around us, and that the universe does have your back, and the universe wants to understand what your intentions are so it can help move that energy force with you. But it's not going to do the work for you. You have to do the work. You have to take action. And so I believe that in the doing is when you see results. I believe that the clarity you gain from being honest about what you want will change your behavior. And that's what's going to bring those results. And I'm going to share something else. I think there's another piece that maybe we don't talk about enough or often. And it's this: I don't think we manifest from the person we've been. So I'm going to say this a little bit slowly because I think you may need to digest on this one. You know, if we're going to talk about manifestation and we're going to talk about creating vision for our lives and getting in alignment with what we want, I need you to understand this. We do not manifest from the person we've been. I think we manifest from the person we're becoming. So as my identity shifted, so did my decisions. As my boundaries shifted, my conversation shifted. My confidence started to shift. My willingness to take risks shifted too, right? So as my confidence grew and I felt really deep in my soul that this path is the path I should be on, my willingness to take risks grew too, because I know that I am working in alignment with my purpose and my passion. And so as that starts to happen and those things start to shift, the rest of my life did too. And so I think that's what manifestation really is. That's what I think it looks like. I don't think it has anything to do with wishing for a different life. It has everything to do with giving yourself permission to become the kind of person who recognizes opportunities and is prepared to act on them. And more importantly, who can trust herself enough to say yes. Even if you don't have all the answers, even if you don't know clearly what the path ahead looks like. I didn't, I still don't, but I feel that I am clear that I can trust myself to figure it out. And if somewhere along the path it is not taking me in a direction I feel is right, I know I can stop and make a new decision. And so that's something else that I want to leave you with today is that you're always in control. You're in the driver's seat of your life and you get to make those decisions. And the other thing I want to leave you with is this. None of this, like I said, is magic and it is not effortless. I've been working really hard and I have put in a lot of long days, probably longer days than I've put in years. And that's not to say I wasn't working hard in the past. It's that when you want to create or manifest this vision, you're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And it's not just sitting around and thinking positively. You have to be in action to do the work and make things happen. But when the work is purposeful, it doesn't feel forced at all, right? When the work is purposeful, it's not forceful. And that is an important distinction to make too. And I'm learning that more and more, that purpose gives you energy, but alignment gives you capacity. You can work incredibly hard and still feel deeply at peace when what you're building reflects who you really are. And that's what I've been living these last few months. So, another part of the story that I don't want to leave out, because it really has nothing to do with business, is something a little bit more personal. And this is another, I guess, update as to some great things happening in the last 6 months. And for me, it's about my health. I've shared a couple of updates on social media, but I've been quiet about it. But I will tell you that really it's a journey that started probably 12 months ago. But over the last 6 months, especially, I've been very intentional about taking care of myself. I've been working on my physical health, my mental fortitude, and the daily disciplines that I think are helping me to become stronger. And currently, today I'm at the lowest weight I've been in more than 35 years. And while I'm really proud of that, the number on the scale, well, the number on the scale is exciting, but it's not what really matters most. All right. What matters most is what it represents. And I think it represents hundreds of little decisions I've been making along the way. It represents the fact that I am honoring myself. I am honoring my body. I'm honoring my mental and spiritual health. And I'm honoring the commitments I'm making to myself. And I think that the number on the scale for me represents becoming someone who can follow through. Being this weight that I am today, full transparency, every year I write a list of things I want to accomplish personally. And every year, this number, or some number close to this, has been on that list for probably 7 years. And I'm finally there. And even though I do want to continue to get to a lower goal weight, I acknowledge that this really represents how I'm honoring myself and showing the discipline and the follow through. And I feel that that discipline and follow through is actually spilling into other areas of my life. It has showed up in my writing. Like I said, I would get up every day and write. It's funny because the discipline and follow through has been with me throughout my career and in my leadership, but I feel like it's showing up in an even bigger way now. And as I'm continuing to expand and build the next level of my own business, my own coaching practice, it definitely is evident there too. So I guess my final thought is that growth isn't compartmentalized. If you start growing in one area, it will create a positive impact in other areas of your life too. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today and letting me update you and share some things going on in my life. But I will say this. If someone had told me back in January that by the end of July, I would have finished a book, a companion workbook, and a journal, by the way, developed some other additional resources to share with the world, that I would have stepped away from my 14-year career, expanded my coaching and consulting business, spoken on more stages, been interviewed and traveled to some great places to meet some extraordinary people, and to be healthier than I've been in decades, at the same time, I'm not sure I wouldn't believe them. And not because I didn't want any of those things, or not because I was not, that I didn't believe I could achieve them. It just seems incredible that I'm firing on all cylinders. But I'm also being realistic about how I'm creating the space for that, and how I'm capable of making it happen, and how I'm also taking the time to recharge the battery so that I can continue to sustain that growth. And that's been pretty incredible. And so I hope you found some inspiration in me sharing this with you today, because the most exciting and rewarding part of all of this, and the greatest, I'm struggling to know what to call it. Is it a surprise? I don't think it is a surprise, because I've seen the transformation in other people. That's what I live for as a coach. I live to see your growth and transformation. But it's interesting when it's happening in your own life. And it's pretty spectacular when you realize that you're growing and developing into this newer, extended version of yourself. Even though you are who you are at your core, it's just an amazing expansion. So I really appreciate you being here with me week after week, especially today, and letting me share some of these thoughts with you. And it wouldn't be the Monday Morning Mojo podcast or Anna Gibbs if I didn't leave you with a question. So here it comes. All right, guys. So here's your question I want to leave you with. When we get back here together 6 months from now, what story do you want to be able to tell? Because we're only halfway through this year of the fire horse. And again, whether you believe in the symbolism of it or not, we're still only halfway through this year. And there's still time to make courageous decisions. There's still time to choose yourself. There is still time to do whatever it is that you've been thinking about. If it's writing a book or starting a business or prioritizing your health, like I've shared with you, great. Maybe it's a conversation you've been waiting to have. Maybe it's to say yes to an opportunity you've been waiting for. Maybe it's to make a move. Maybe it's to live in a different state. Maybe it's to ask out that special person. Whatever it is, my hope is that something I said during today's episode has you thinking, and it has you wondering what could be next for you. Because I really hope this conversation is leaving you with that feeling so that you can start to ask what's possible for you. Because if these last 6 months have taught me anything, it's this: the future is not built by one giant leap. It's built by making one choice, one decision after another. I guess I'll say one aligned decision after another. And it's in those small moments, right? It's the gradual growth that suddenly feels big. So here's to the second half of the year. I have a feeling the best chapters are still ahead for all of us. I love you, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much, guys.